And we're going live in about 10 seconds, so we are recording now.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Are you having a Q&A?
Yes.
Yep.
At the end, yep.
Yep, I'll manage that as well for you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, so it's on for half an hour. What happens at the end of the half an hour? Does it just automatically switch off, or?
No, I will end it for you.
Okay, great.
But we now have 27 attendees. So you,
yeah, let's go.
I want to get started go. And so welcome to the session of How to Master Your Budget with Esther Bangura, Assistant Project Manager at Transport for London and budgeting expert and personal finance coach, and Charisma Jain, Senior Project Manager at Transport for London and board member and trustee of WES. Lovely to meet you both.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for the introduction. Hi, everybody. My name's Esther, and I am an Assistant Project Manager. I work at TfL. So my biggest financial win has actually been me becoming debt-free. And my biggest financial mistake that I think I've ever made is not paying myself first. And one of the goals that I'm working on in my finances is to be able to buy my home. So welcome to the Master Your Budget session, where you're going to learn everything you need to know about how to get your budget working for you to help you achieve your financial goals. I'm going to pass on to Charisma to introduce herself.
Thanks, Esther. As both Esther and Elizabeth have said, my name is Charisma Jain, and I'm an SPM who works at Transport for London. Just to give you what my biggest financial mistake would be, is that I don't think I've given enough time to make any savings. So I think I did it way too late. I just did think about it. I didn't think it was important. So for me, that's a mistake. My biggest success would be around buying my first house. I was super impressed with myself. And yes, that did involve saving, and we can get onto that a little bit more later on. My next goal is saving for a new kitchen. I've been in my house for probably 5 or 6 years, and we've always said that we wanted a new kitchen, and we said it would only take 2 years, but it's now 6 years. So that's our next goal, probably an extended goal, but there we go. So welcome again to this session. And what we do want to say is, although this session is around how to master your budget, we want to put a disclaimer in. We are not financial advisors. This is our kind of spare time hobby, although Esther takes it much more seriously than I do. My day job is project manager, so I do deal with numbers in my day role, but this is more about us as people and our experiences and our journeys around our finances and money. So we want to be able to share our experiences with you, to hopefully not make the same mistakes that we did and collectively learn together. So if you do need financial advice, please do register with a certified financial advisor. Great. It's just on to the session overview. So what will you hear today? So this session is mostly about budgeting. It is only a 30-minute session today. So this is a snapshot from Esther's kind of 8-point guide around recession proofing your finances. So this is going to be a very quick whistle stop into budgeting, but we hope you find it interesting. We ask, what is budgeting and how will that help you manage your finances better? We'll give you some information around how you can categorize your budget. And we can also give you our rules and what we've found as quite important, and how useful it's been to kind of make sure that you follow these rules. And don't forget, these are rules that we've created that have worked for us, or more so for Esther. My rules are probably slightly different, but that's because one set of rules don't work for everybody. So please do bear that in mind. And one of the other things that we would like to say is it's your budget. So if stick to your own kind of monthly budget. We can't tell you what's right and what's wrong for you. So please do take that as we go through the detail in this session. Over to you, Esther.
Thank you so much, Chrisma. Okay, brilliant. So we'll start off with what is a budget. So by the end of this slide, I would really love to be able to get you to redefine what budgeting is for you, because I'm sure we all have our own definition of budgeting. And if I was to do a survey, most of you will say budgeting is boring, it's restrictive, I hate doing it. Some of you might love budgeting like me. So I want to give you a new definition of budgeting, which is that budgeting is a decision-making, planning, and a crucial financial management tool. Budgeting is there to help you make decisions when it comes to your finances. It will help you to plan where you are and where you want to be with your financial goals. It's also there for you to use as a tool, so it will work as best as the way that you use it. And so in layman's term, a budget is a list of outlining what's coming in and what's going out over a specific period of time. Now, for most of us being here as well, the audience being here as a student, that might be how much you get every sort of quarter from your student finance. Or if you have a part-time job, it could be how much you get paid on a weekly, bi-weekly, or a monthly basis. So it's really just capturing what's coming in, what's going out between a specific period of time, and that will change for everybody. So like I said, most people don't like the word budget. So it really doesn't matter what you call it. Name it after yourself, name it after your favorite celebrity. It doesn't matter what you call it as long as you have one. And so budgeting is also your financial roadmap. When you budget, it will show you where you are and where you want to go in your finances. Most of us have financial goals, but a lot of us find it so difficult to get from A to B. So when you budget, it's really going to help to give you that roadmap of how to navigate your day-to-day finances to get where it is that you want to be. And finally, your budget is the foundation of your financial plan. If you think about somebody who's bought a land to build a house, right? There's no way that they'll buy that land and then just start going to IKEA and buying furniture without having laid the foundation, built the structure, built the walls and the doors, you know. And so your budget is that. When you start to budget, it gives you that foundation where from that you can start to save, you can build wealth, you can invest, you can leave a legacy. So for me, budgeting is essential when it comes to financial management. And so why should you even bother with a budget, and how can it help you? So now that you know what a budget is, I really want to try and convince you how budgeting will actually help you to achieve your financial goals. So the first thing that budgeting helps with is that it helps you to identify wastage, overspending, and opportunities to save. So when you budget and you budget consistently every month, you're able to see exactly where your money is going. You can use your budget as a tracker to actually see where you're spending money on a month-to-month basis. Your budget will help you to see where you're overspending. So when I started budgeting, I realized that I spent a lot of money on food. You know, I spent a lot of money on buying gifts for people. And so I knew that that was an area that I needed to kind of bring in control. And it wasn't that my budget stopped me from doing that, but I really needed to create a limit, you know, so that I'll be able to achieve some of my other goals. And if you're planning to save money, your budget will show you where you can save money. So I noticed that, you know, by just having a cap on how much gifts I'll buy my friends and how much I'd go out, I was actually able to put, you know, extra money aside into my savings. Your budget is an act of personal responsibility and accountability in your finances. It's a way of you exercising control over your money. So a lot of us feel out of control when it comes to our finances. A lot of us feel that the money comes in and by the time the week ends, it's just all gone and we don't know what happened. It's a story that we can't retell. But when you budget, your budget will help to give you back that control, because we work hard for our money, you know, so it's important that we know where it's going. And number three, your budget will pre-warn you if you can or can't afford an upcoming event. And so if you've got friends that's inviting you to go somewhere, instead of giving that yes straight away, the answer that you're most likely to give or should give would be, let me check in with my budget, because actually my budget's going to tell me whether or not I can attend that event. My budget's going to tell me whether or not I can afford that particular item. By planning and assigning roles for every penny, you won't be caught in surprise. So when people say to me, I had an unexpected bill or a surprise bill, that's like somebody coming to your front door, knocking and asking you to give them £100, you know. And so when you budget, because you know everything about your finances, you know what's coming in, you know what's going out, there's no surprises. Now, this is different from emergencies, right? And we have what we call an emergency fund to be able to sort out emergencies, but there's no such thing as like a surprise kind of bill that comes out of nowhere. And when that happens, it's likely that you're not budgeting or on top of your finances. And finally, your budget is going to help you to reduce stress when it comes to financial management. A lot of people, especially now in the middle of a pandemic, so much uncertainty, people feel stressed about their finances. But when you start to budget and you budget consistently, your budget's going to show you exactly where you are with your finances. And because you're using it as a planning tool, you're using it as a decision-making tool, there's really no need to be stressed, because you know exactly where you need to be and what you need to be doing with your finances. And please, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button to submit your questions. I'm going to go through this really quick. So if you've got a notepad as well, be sure to take notes, and this video will be available for you to rewatch, I believe, at a later stage. So I'm going to talk you through categorization, and the image on the slide is actually a handout that is available to you, and it's my very own, what I call Pay Yourself First budget sheet. And it's a budget sheet that will help you to have a more organized and structured way of budgeting. Now, what I'll be teaching in this session is more principles, right? So you can apply these how you want. And if you have your own budget template that you're already using and happy with, then I encourage you to continue to use that, and maybe just transition some of the principles that you're learning into what you're already doing. Like what Christmas said, there really isn't a right or wrong. You have to find your own way. So when we come to budget, the first thing we do is we put down what we expect to come in. We list out our income, and it could be one or several. So there's some examples there of types of income. It could be salary from a job, student loan, grants, sponsorships that you're receiving. You might have a side hustle that you're doing, or even interest that you're receiving from savings or bonds and dividends that's coming in. So any money coming in is what we class as income. So you first want to list your income. And then you want to decide how much you're going to pay yourself first. Now, this is usually what people do at the end. So they get paid, they spend their money, and then they see how much they have left to save or invest or even put towards debt. But I want to encourage you to start thinking with the end in mind, that wealth is what you keep. Wealth is what you build. So when you get paid or when you receive that money, think about how much you're going to put aside for your fun pot, your spending money, how much you're going to put aside to give if you're somebody that gives to a charity, how much you're going to put aside to pay off some debts, how much you're going to put aside to save and to invest. Have this at the forefront of your mind. And so here is a guide that I want to encourage you to use. Whenever you get money in your hands, think about how much you can pay yourself and how much you can spend. So there's a set of 3 rules. The first one is the beginner rule, and it's a 20-80 rule. And it's basically where you decide that I'm going to pay myself 20% of the income that I've received, and the 80% is what I will use to spend. And then there's the improver stage, which is where you put aside 30% and you spend the 70%. And then there's the expert stage where you put aside 45% and you spend 55%. And then the third category is where you list out all of your priority outgoings. Now, your priority outgoings are bills that if you don't pay them, you could receive a penalty, a repossession, you could have bailiffs knocking at your door, you could be sent to court, or you could be disconnected. So this is basically things that we need to stay alive, to live, to keep a roof over our head. Category number 4 is your fixed outgoings. And these are monthly outgoings that are non-contractual, but they're good to have. So these can be like gym memberships, although nobody's going to the gym right now for a little while, but also TV subscriptions, your Amazon subscription, Netflix. These are things that, although we spend money on a monthly basis, they're more good to haves than needs to have. Category number 5 is where you list out variable and upcoming transactions. And this is basically expenses that come and go. They're not monthly. They're sometimes bi-weekly, bi-monthly or bi-weekly, or they come once a year. So in this category, you would list out all of your variable upcoming transactions. And it's also a particular bill that could be coming up, something that you know you have to pay for in like 2-3 months time. And by having it in your budget, you know what I mentioned about not being caught by surprise, you know it's there, you know it's coming, and therefore you're able to plan towards it. Category number 6, this is my favorite, because this is where you build really good money habits. And this is where you make sure that not a penny is running away from you. And this is where you list out things that you have spent money on after you've created your budget that you didn't really plan for. So the idea is that you create your budget before payday, and then you get paid. And as your expenses are being paid off, you come back to your budget and you tick it off. But you might have spent money on something that you didn't plan for. It's really important to capture it in the unplanned transaction, because this is where you're going to see where your money is going and where you could have opportunities to save and where you could identify areas that you're wasting money. And then category 7 is where you list out any debts that you have. Okay, so I'm going to run through my 10 budgeting rules. So there's rules to everything, right? Even if you're going to color your hair, like there's basic rules that you have to follow, even when everybody has their own way of doing it. So the first rule to budgeting, and this is what will get your budget to work, is to have a goal for your budget. So as students, your goal for budgeting could just be, you know, to be able to keep a roof over your head, to be able to, you know, pay your bills, and to have money aside that you can use to spend money, and to have a little bit of savings that you can dip into, you know, in case student loan messes up your payments, or in case, you know, mum and dad don't send in, you know, some pocket money in time, you've got something to fall back on. Rule number 2 is to make time for your budget. So I call it your money day. Set a date and a time aside when you will budget. And ideally, you want to do this before payday. Rule number 3 is to know your numbers. And you know your numbers by having an organized finance. And I'm actually going to share a link of a free tool that you can use to help you organize your finance. Rule number 4 is to pay yourself first, always. Even if somebody gives you £1, take 20p aside and save it and spend the 80 pence. Get used to paying yourself first, because it really is a habit that you will build. And as you get older and you know, get your first job and you start, you know, building your career, you're used to that habit. Rule number 5 is to prioritize your outgoings. And you can do this by using the category framework within the budget sheet. Rule number 6 is to decide on a method of payment. So decide how you're going to pay your bills. Are you going to use a standing order? Are you going to use direct debit? Will you automate it? Or some bills you may decide that you want to pay them manually. Rule number 7 is to live below your means, because like I said, wealth is what you keep, not what you spend. Rule number 8 is to decide on a tool or resource that will help you budget easier. So there's lots of app, you know, I use the Emma app just to kind of give me an overview of all of my bank accounts, but there's different apps out there that can help you to budget. There's loads of, you know, spreadsheets that you can use, or you can even create your own. I started budgeting doing it the traditional way, you know, pen and paper and a ruler and a calculator. Rule number 9 is to decide how often you will review your budget. So will you be looking at your budget on a weekly, bi-weekly basis? It's really important that you come back to review what you've created to ensure that you're sticking to the plan. And finally, rule number 10 is discipline. Discipline is essential when it comes to taking control of your finances. And the truth is that if you apply rule number 1 to 9, you're going to naturally be disciplined. So I would say don't worry about being disciplined on its own. Just practice and master rules number 1 to 9. Okay, so I'm going to pass over to Chrisma.
Just trying to unmute myself. Thank you, Esther.
Welcome.
Thanks. So what do you do if you have more going out than is coming in? I've often had to deal with this problem, especially as a student. I never really thought about what my kind of coming in was. It was, I just need books, I need to go out, I need to buy food, and I would never really stick to anything rigid. So what do you do if you've got more going out than is coming in? So do overtime, and how can you increase what you've got coming in? And I know that some of you may not be working right now, but can you, if you are working, do overtime in your current job to kind of increase that income? If you feel like you do need to spend more money, can you get a part-time job? Can you get a second job? What are the different ways of increasing more to bring more money in? Have you decided on developing skills to get a promotion or change careers? Obviously, as a student, you may have a focus of a career that you have in mind. I always think about what my next step's going to be, and if I am developing my skills, is it going to help me in increasing the money that I've got coming in? If it's a real short-term problem and I really do need some money, what can I sell to get that short-term income? Can I sell my car? Do I really need my car? I live in London. I quite often get the tube. Do I really need that car today for the next 6 months, a year? Do I need all of the clothes that I would like to buy? Furniture. Do I need all the furniture that's in my house? Can I sell some stuff to get that little bit of extra money coming in? Use the skills and the expertise that you have. Nowadays, people are really tech savvy, and more often than not, people always have their full-time gig, but they also have something on the side. So what is your on the side gig that can bring you a little bit of extra money? How can you start reducing your expenses? Do you always need everything that you buy? I certainly don't. There's often things that I buy that I don't necessarily need, but it feels good to buy it at the time. Can you switch to something cheaper? I've always had the iPhone, or when I was younger, I would always have the latest iPhone. Now I'm a little bit older. I don't necessarily need the latest iPhone, but it is a way of switching to something that's cheaper. What subscriptions do you have? So I have Spotify, I have gym membership, I have quite a few memberships. And if I was really struggling, I think there are some things that they're not essential, they're nice to have. So if there are things that you have that are nice to have and you need more coming in than is going out, then please do just kind of review what you're spending on going out and assess whether you really need those items. So how do you stick to your monthly budget? So these are Esther's top 6 tips. As you can guess, I am not a financial expert. I am kind of Esther's sidekick. She does this in her spare time on quite a serious level, whereas I'm just interested and I'm trying to make my money work for me. So tip 1 from Esther: identify why you haven't stuck to your budget in the past. I rarely stick to my budget. And over time, it's good for you to assess the reasons why you haven't stuck to your budget. One rule, so you've set your budget because you thought this is what you could stick to. So this is all about you. And if you're continuing, I can't even say the word. If you continue to not stick to your budget, try and understand the reasons why and change your budget so you are able to stick to it. There's no point in setting something up where you're going to fail. And remember the why. Why are you doing this? You're trying to make your money work for you. Esther's tip 3 is find a budgeting method that works well for you. So I personally don't use a spreadsheet. I have a couple of different apps on my phone, and that works for me. It's probably not the most structured method, but I feel that is the amount of time that I want to spend on it, and that's what works for me. And I feel I have a fairly good grasp of the money that is coming in and out. Tip 4 is to create a realistic budget. Again, just going back to what I said earlier, it's something that has to work for you. Esther and I can't tell you what a realistic budget is for you. Only you know that. Tip 5 is having a positive mindset and an environment for success is everything. So if you think you're going to fail straight away, then you will most definitely fail. Be realistic, be positive. And yes, we're not saying that you're not going to have a couple of bumps along the way. That is life, and that will happen. But the most important thing for me is if you make those budgets and make those mistakes, as long as you learn from those as long as you learn from those mistakes and revise what that budget looks like, then you're off to a really good start. And then the final tip is review your budget regularly. So if you have a budget and you just leave it to one side, how do you know, how are you tracking your progress? How do you know if you're going to be successful or not? So I guess our last tip, which is reviewing your budget regularly, is probably the most important one. So please do always check your budget. And I think we're going to go to the final slide. And this is it's time to budget. So we are at the end of the slides, and we would like to open up for Q&A. I realise that we have talked for quite some time and we are near the end of the session. We have been using the chat box to see if there's any questions.
There are 2 questions, and you've got to be really quick because the next session starts bang on 1:45, and I've got to go and start that for you. How much would you suggest to put aside for an emergency fund, and can you recommend any apps or software?
So your emergency fund would be the total amount of your monthly expense that you need to live on. So that would be different for each person. So say all of your bills in a month come up to £500, then your 1 month emergency fund will be £500 savings. And so if you times that by 3, that would give you your 3 months. If you times that by 6, that will give you your 6 months. So calculate how much your total expenses that you need to live on, and then that will give you how much you need to save as an emergency fund. I use Monzo to do my budgeting. That's the one thing that I can recommend. Some people use Revolt, but there's lots of different things out there, but I use Monzo. Any other question?
I think that's all, but thank you very much, Charisma and Esther, for some fantastic tips. And I do keep a budget. I do pay myself first, but what I don't do is go back and check my budget against my spend. So I'm definitely going to start that. Thank you very much, everybody, and I'll see you in the next session.
Thank you.